Welcome to episode 188 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Myers, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I'm interviewing writer-director Jared Cohn. He's done a number of horror films, horror thriller films. We talk about his most recent film, Devil's Domain. Jared's very down to earth, and we talk through exactly how he got his career going. Just to give you some perspective, he's directed about 15 films in the last 3 years. Coincidentally, I've talked with the writers on 2 of those films. One was called The Horde, and that's in episode 129. The other was called Little Dead Riding Hood, and that was episode 113. Jared has lots of great advice, so stay tuned for that interview. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. Any websites or links that I mention in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcast, and then just look for episode number 188. If you want my free guide, How to Sell a Screenplay in 5 Weeks, you can pick that up by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. It's completely free. You just put in your email address and I'll send you a new lesson once per week for 5 weeks along with a bunch of bonus lessons. I teach the whole process of how to sell your screenplay in that guide. I'll teach you how to write a professional logline inquiry letter and how to find agents, managers, and producers who are looking for material. Really is everything you need to know to sell your screenplay. Once again, if this sounds like something you'd like to check out, just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. Just want to quickly mention the writers group that I'm in. We're always looking to add good writers to the rotation. We meet every Tuesday at 7:15 p.m. until about 10 p.m. in Sherman Oaks, California. It's right around where the 405 and 101 intersect. Here's how it works. Each week, 3 member writers put up around 25 pages of screenplay that they're currently working on. The pages are read on stage by professional actors in front of the other writers in the group, and then the listening writers give notes to the presenting writers after the read is finished. As a member writer, you'll be putting up pages roughly every 5 weeks. It's a great way to workshop your material, network with other talented actors and writers, and hone your critical thinking skills by giving notes to other writers. This is a live in-person event, so you need to live somewhere near Sherman Oaks, California to be able to attend. If you're not in the Los Angeles area, perhaps consider starting a writers group on your own. Nearly every city in the world has a community of filmmakers and writers, and in most cases they're just looking for someone to step up and be a leader and get these things organized. The one big stumbling block for people joining this group is that you have to be committed to showing up nearly every Tuesday, even when you're not up, so that you can give notes to the other writers. The whole system only works if there are other writers that are coming every week, even if they're not presenting pages, so that they can give notes to the writers that are presenting. If you'd like to learn more about the writers group, go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/writers group, and that's writers group is all lowercase and it's all one word. Again, that's sellingyourscreenplay.com/writers group, and I will, of course, link to it in the show notes. A quick few words about what I'm working on. So once again, I'm still working on post-production on my crime, action, thriller, feature film, The Pinch. Things are still moving along slowly. Last week, I met with the editor and we started to work to incorporate some of the special effects shots into our timeline. We ran into a few technical glitches, nothing terrible, but a few shots just need to be re-exported. There was just some codec issues, some sizing issues, just a few of the effect shots just, as I said, just need to be re-exported, and then we'll be able to import them properly into our timeline. I'm still talking to remixers, trying to find someone who can do the final sound mix on this, but I'm still waiting for my dialogue editor. Obviously, we can't do the final sound mix until the dialogue edit is complete. I'm hoping that will be completed this week. On the writing front, I'm deep into writing my gritty thriller TV show that I mentioned last week. As I mentioned, I've finished the Bible. That was really the first step, was writing the show Bible. I finished that piece, and now I'm just working on the actual pilot episode, churning out pages every day. I think I've got about 10 pages of a 60-page pilot, so I'm hoping to finish up in the next few weeks on that pilot. So now let's get into the main segment. Today I'm interviewing writer-director Jared Cohn. Here is the interview. Welcome, Jared, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show with me today.
You know what? Thank you so much for having me on, and big fan of the podcast and everything that you do for for writers and filmmakers.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. So to start out, maybe you can give us a little bit of background about yourself. Where did you grow up, and how did you get interested in the entertainment business?
I'm from New York originally, and I did not really know exactly what I wanted to do until about college, and took an interest in the entertainment industry and specifically, writing. And was also interested in acting, and so I moved to Los Angeles to pursue both. And obviously, as if you're trying to get into acting and writing, you're going to have a lot of free time. So my focus quickly shifted to writing, and I just sort of fell into it and really developed a passion for it. Was watching movies, was reading quite a few scripts, read the books, Sid Field and Save, what is it, Save the Cat?
Yeah, Blake Snyder, Save the Cat, yeah.
And also now I'm also, Robert McKee's. So always trying to learn, always trying to, watch great movies, and, and just most importantly is to write. I think that's you can almost be spending most of your time at seminars, reading scripts and watching movies. But at the end of the day, if, you have to just write, plant yourself in front of your computer.
Yeah,
or
that is excellent advice. Exactly. Don't get distracted listening to podcasts. Just keep on writing.
Your podcast. Your podcast.
So let's talk about your LA move a little bit. I get a lot of people emailing me, "Hey, can I make it work from outside of LA? How do what is a good place to live?" Just general LA. What did you come out with? It sounds like you were sort of the typical story, and I was too. Graduated college, threw everything in a truck, just drove out here. What did you have out in LA already? Did you have friends? Did you have a few bucks in the bank so you could get an apartment? Just maybe describe that, and where did you ultimately end up living that first apartment you found?
I had one friend that was actually my roommate in Boston, who was an actor, and now he's a pretty successful actor. And he was the only person that I knew. I basically put everything in my car. I drove out. I'm fortunate enough that I had my parents were somewhat supportive and were able to help me out in the early days. And but I did work quite a few part-time jobs as well, to sort of to not be completely reliant. But as I progressed and worked more, that I was able to sustain myself. And but yeah, I knew one person now, and just that's such an important thing is knowing people, because the people that hire you, the people that if you're writing a script, that you have someone to read the script, and producers. But yeah.
Where did you end up? Where did you end up in Los Angeles?
I was originally in West LA near Brentwood, Westwood. But to address your previous question about whether people can become successful screenwriters not living in LA, I would recommend going to LA. There was actually another great book I read, How to Write Movies for Fun and Profit, with the word fun crossed out. It was by the South Park guys. And the first thing they say in the book is move to Los Angeles, which I think is important because it is the entertainment, movie, and television capital of the world, and that's where you'll have the best chance connecting with people. That said, yes, you can become a successful screenwriter living outside of Los Angeles. I just feel it would be in your best interest to go to Los Angeles because it is such a tough nut to crack, and you're giving yourself a better odds by being around the production companies and able to go to the pitch fests, which I've done numerous times, and I've met some great contacts, and I'm always keep that sort of that hungry attitude of wanting to connect with more people, expand the circle of people of contacts. So I think these are all important things to do. When you're not in LA, you're sort of limited to tracking people down on IMDb Pro and sending emails and phone calls and screenwriting competitions, which are all great things, which I would still say if you're in Los Angeles to do, but you got to you want to be where the action is. Otherwise, you're limited on the things that you can do.
Yeah. So let's describe those first couple months. What did you do? You land in LA, and how did you actually start to turn this into a career? What were some of those things? You just mentioned Pitch Fest, query letters, all that stuff. Maybe just run us through some of those first sort of beginning steps and what things worked, what things didn't, and how did you finally get that first inkling of a break?
Well, the beginning was rough. I got to be honest with you. There was very little activity. I was much younger, and there was a lot of why did I do this? Angst, anxiety, possible did I make the right decision? But eventually, after you sort of go through that, that was a pretty tough time. You sort of got to pick yourself up and just write. I mean, some people have great success very early on. But that's if you know a lot of people, if you're sort of happen to be fortunate enough to be born into a entertainment family. But for me, it was really a lot of self-motivation, sitting in front of my computer and just writing. And what really helped me actually get my first sort of break was the people that I met as an actor. Being on set, interacting with producers, and the first script. I mean, I had sold the script, and we made this movie, a very, very small, micro-budgeted film called Legend Has It, and I actually sold it to there was a sound mixer on a movie that I was an actor on, and we went ahead. He wanted me to write the script. I sent him a script that I had written prior, but it was an action script, and he wanted a horror script. So he then commissioned me to write a horror, and I wrote that. But that really didn't lead to too much other things. So I kept writing. I kept pursuing the acting, and I was fortunate enough to get cast in a movie by the production company, The Asylum. Most known for Sharknado and Z Nation. So I kept writing scripts, and I reached out to David Ramawi, who's one of the partners at the Asylum, and I kept sending it. I sent him the script, and it was one of those things where it's every 2 weeks you send an email. Hey, did you get a chance to read my script? Did you get a chance to read my script? And eventually he did, and he liked it, and I remember the phone call that I got when he called me and said, I read your script. I really like it. What do you want to do? And at the time, I was actually back in New York because I lived in LA for 5 or 6 years, and then after sort of needed a break, went back to New York for a few years to go finish up college at film school. But I was writing. I never stopped writing. I always just kept this fire in me and kept writing, and that's when I got the phone call when I was in New York, and then immediately, of course, he wants to talk about I'm on a plane the next day. I'm sitting in front of him, and it was interesting because at the time I was still interested in acting, but then I wanted to, I was also taking an interest in directing, and he had asked me if I wanted to direct or play the lead, which I had originally was writing scripts, a lot of them, for me to play the lead, which I think is a great. A lot of people will argue otherwise. Oh, you should just write a great script. Don't worry, don't write every role, don't write the lead roles for yourself. But I recently learned and sort of had a realization that if you're an actor and you do write a role for yourself that you want to play, most likely it's going to be a really good role, because you want to play you want the role that's going to be the role of a lifetime, that's going to advance your career. So if you have that in mind, whether or not you play the role or not, it's going to be a good character. Mm-hmm. So I think that's one thing that writers can do, is think, is this a role that if I get the script to a name actor, that they're going to want to play it too, because it's a good role. It's obviously, it's written to be a career-making role. So but every role should, be actor bait, as they say. So I've been doing, I kind of went back to that model, even whether or not I want to play the role, but you want that role, you want an actor to read it and be like, because that's what gets movies made, is if you can attract a star name actor and they read the script and they're like, this is a role that I want to play. This is a really good fleshed out character. And if you get a big name actor attached, then most likely the movie will be made. That's just how it works in this town. Actors green light movies. A producer who knows actors can get the movie, but you always need a big actor. In some instances, a producer will say, this is a great script, we're making it, we're definitely going to make it, and then we're just going to make, cash offers to actors and find the actor. But in many instances, producers that are not necessarily cash funded will say, I need to get an actor attached, and then I can take it to the investor or one of the higher up people with money.
Yeah. I want to touch on something you mentioned. You said you reached out to this guy at the asylum. Maybe you can describe exactly what that is. Was that like a cold email? You went on IMDb Pro, found this guy, or was it through like some sort of personal connection, like you knew someone who knew someone who knew him?
Well, I got cast. I got cast in an asylum movie. I actually got cast in one movie and then wound up doing 4 asylum movies as an actor. And due to the initial audition, booking the role, and continuing to get hired by the asylum, I had developed the personal relationship with the producer, and it was because of that that I was able to email him and say, hey, it's Jared Cohn. He knew me at that point. So, and I was like, hey, I have a script, and I always tell screenwriters that are trying to get a screenplay read that you have to shove the screenplay down their throat, which means just be persistent, and because people don't want to read screenplays. It's almost like asking them to watch your baby for a year. It is so difficult. It's still difficult to get a producer to read, because there's so many scripts. These producers are inundated, and the big producers are getting scripts from the big agencies. So if you're not a big name writer and you're trying to get a producer to read a script without a personal connection, or without winning a big contest where people are championing your script, then it's always going to be an uphill battle, and there's no consistent path that you can take. So I was lucky enough to, the acting really kind of helped me with my screenwriting career, which is, everyone has their own path to get, to become a working writer. And for me, that was just how it sort of happened for me.
And what was the name of that film?
That was Born Bad, but I will back that up a little bit. I wrote the script. It was called Steady Denny. And and you know, it was a bad boyfriend. It was a, you know, charming boyfriend who turns out to be, you know, very evil. And eventually, after working with the development at the asylum, we shaped it for Lifetime, the network, the TV network. And eventually they liked the script. We made the movie. I wound up directing the movie, and that really helped my directing as well.
Mm-hmm.
Led to other opportunities, and it's called Born. Now it's Born Bad.
Okay, and tell me, let's talk just a minute about directing this feature, because that's another question I get often is, hey, I wrote this script. How can I keep myself attached as a director? Had you directed a lot of stuff before Born Bad? Like you had some sort of a resume you could show them, or a reel that you could show them as a director?
So prior to Born Bad, I directed one movie, and of course nobody's going to fund unless you're coming out of AFI or a prestigious film school or anything, or you have a short or whatever. I directed one feature, and I took out pretty much every dollar I had of my bank account, and fortunately my family contributed some money, and I made this one film called The Carpenter. It's a horror film, which of course usually it's a horror film when you have a small budget. Mm-hmm. And when I was in conversations with the asylum, I remember they asked me, they go, well, have you directed anything? And I said, yes, here's a DVD of The Carpenter. And and I'm very glad I did that, because had I not done that film, I might not have had the opportunity to direct Born Bad. Mm-hmm. So I would definitely recommend to anyone that wants to direct something, whether, you know, even a short film, you know, direct a 7-minute, 5-minute short that shows you can work with actors, that you can get quality, you know, you're able to make a quality something. You have to have at least one thing, or else you're completely untested, unproven, and no one's going to feel comfortable, you know, investing a lot of money in someone who hasn't directed anything.
Yeah, for sure. Sound advice. So let's talk about Devil's Domain here for a minute. Maybe to start out, you can kind of just give us a quick pitch or logline for that film.
That movie is basically about a depressed girl obsessed with social media who she's a lesbian who is in high school and sort of gets bullied for, you know, her sexual orientation, and then she, through a chance, you know, meets a very mysterious stranger who turns out to be the devil, who offers her the opportunity to get vengeance on those who bully her and cyberbully her. Although, of course, there's always, you know, a hook. The devil, you know, since she's so pure and innocent, I don't want to do a spoiler, but the devil wants something in return, of course, and, you know, after some contemplation, she agrees, and then winds up, you know, regretting that decision. But she's also obsessed with media and fame and social media, and so she's very much an online millennial, and it sort of touches on cyberbullying and social media and LGBT themes, but it's also a horror movie because, you know, it has the revenge angle. So it's an interesting film. It got reviewed pretty well, and I wrote the script and I directed the movie, yeah, I'm proud of it. We did it for, you know, it was a low budget film, but, you know, we did the best we can with the resources that we had, and yeah, I'm proud of it. It came out in May, at the tail end of May, and yeah, that's perfect. You know, that's pretty.
Yeah, let's talk about your writing process, and it can be specific to Devil's Domain or just sort of in general. How much time? And it sounds like there was a lot of themes, there was a lot of thematic stuff with something like Devil's Domain. But how much time do you spend creating your outline, mulling things over, creating your outline, versus how much time do you spend actually in final draft? Churning out pages.
It's interesting. I sort of go through each script. I sort of have a different. Not each script, but I do some. In the earlier scripts, I would do these much more detailed outlines. And certain companies that I work for, require an initial 1-paragraph pitch, and then when that gets approved, you can move on to a 1-page sort of outline, and then once that, and then everyone, there's notes back and forth on everything. And then once that gets approved, you go on to an 8-act treatment. And, that's much more detailed. And of course, there's notes and back and forth. And once that gets approved, then you are able to start writing the screenplay. So that's one method that I've sometimes, adapted to the script that I write on spec. And other times, I have an idea, and I'll literally write, half a page that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And you always need that. You always need your ending. And you have some, a few things that you want to, incorporate, or whether or not in some of these micro budget movies that I continue to produce myself with my producing partners, we'll have a specific location that we're writing for, that we can get for a good deal. So sometimes I'll just literally write half a page outline for myself, knowing that there's not going to be other people that are going to be giving me notes until the script is done. So I'll write that, and then I'll dive right into the final draft, and then what I do is I'll write 10, 15 pages, and then I'll read them, read the 15 pages, and then go back to the outline as it sort of shapes organically, and then write another little outline that's from that, with those 15 pages in mind, that'll take me to the next, another 15, 20 pages. And then I'll write those pages, read everything, see where I'm at, see what characters develop, see what's sort of shaping up organically. And then I'll continue the outline. So it's sort of like I have 2 outlines. I have the beginning, the middle, and the end. But then as I start writing it, and as the characters shape up, and I'll continue the outline process while writing the screenplay. Which I find is good for me, because the way my process is, I'll write an outline, and then I'll start writing, and then I'm like, well, this outline is not anything of what. And then if you're so locked into this outline and you're trying to write and make it organic, sometimes it doesn't always line up, and you're like, well, this character, well, that doesn't work. I'm going to have to go this new direction. But if you stick to your outline, but they have to hit this point, how am I going to get everything to that point in a logical way that works? So for me, I like this sort of simultaneous, this very loose initial outline, beginning, middle, end, and just diving in and going back to the outline, and that, has sort of been a interesting process that developed on its own. I never would have, came up with that, but that might be something that, the listeners can attempt to do, because oftentimes you'll spend months working on this outline, and then once you get to, there is a logic behind, writing extremely detailed outlines and using index cards and charts and graphs, and I do want to do that and sort of see if that works, and fully flesh out the characters, and you stand up and you act out the dialogue, but I think at my acting background, I sort of hear dialogue in my head. So I don't know that would necessarily benefit me too much, but I still do want to give that approach a shot because I think to write really, I really want to. I'm always trying to improve my writing, and there's two ways. I think there's two ways to really write the master epic script that is going to take people to the next level, and that's either maybe you do this extremely detailed outline with a great idea, based on a true story or something that can win an Academy Award, or you sort of dive in, you write the script, and in any instance, you're going to be rewriting the hell out of it. And what I'm doing now with the script I'm writing that I plan on producing is I'm writing it, I'm rewriting it, and then I use these coverage services, and there's a lot of them. There's one that I use quite a bit, and I really like the notes that they give, and I'll go back and forth with them, and they charge you 150 bucks or so, but it's totally worth it. Because you want professional. If you send your script to your friends or your family, and they don't know, they're going to be like, "Oh, it's great, yeah, we love it," But you want to have it read by a professional reader who's going to basically tear it apart and tell you this thing sucks and this doesn't work, but you can do this to make it better, and then but you don't want to live and die by someone else's notes, because what can happen is you take their notes and it's not meshing with what you have in mind. But there are probably some good points that these readers make. And so I'm gearing up to send it to them, but you want to make sure that it's as best as you feel it can be before sending it out to a coverage service. Because you're going to be spending the money, but it's a worthwhile investment. If you want to, if you have a producer contact, or you're going to be entering it into screenwriting competitions or going to Pitch Fest, you want your script to be in a place that is a really good place, that has been critiqued by professional readers. And that's another thing. Let me just touch upon professional readers, because there's no profession. I mean, you can call them a professional reader, but a professional reader is usually it's a low-level position at a production company, usually a writer that is just looking to tear apart the script. I was a reader for a while, and it's very tough, because who knows who this reader is, who knows what their sensibilities are. You may send them a horror script, they may hate horror, but at the same time, you may send it to another reader who's like, "Oh, this is great, I get it." They have to get it. So it's a crapshoot, and that's why, and nobody knows. People spend hundreds of millions of dollars, and some of those movies aren't good, and they bomb, and they're bad. So, and they've had committees and many readers. So, everything's subjective. And then there's marketing of the movie. Maybe the movie was great, but it just bombed because they didn't market it right. Or the timing was wrong. So it's very tricky to get to be one of those top writers. So it's a brutal industry, and I hate to, but I think we all know that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So let's talk about getting Devil's Domain produced. Before we started recording, you had said that was kind of a paid writing assignment that you were brought in on. So maybe you can describe that relationship, and then how you were able to get in the position that you're getting hired to write and direct a feature film like this.
Well, I was introduced to the production company by a producer that I had worked with several times, that I had hired. Shout out to David Sterling for making that connection, and shout out to Brian Pereira, the producer who believed in me to write the script. And it was they had this idea. They had the idea sort of based on a true story about a young girl who was cyberbullied, who wants to get revenge, and they had this idea, and they were like, "All right, well, write a pitch. Write me I wound up, writing a few pages. They weren't very specific about how long the pitch was, and so I wrote this pitch, and the producer liked it. They wound up liking it, and then like, okay, we'll write the script, and I wrote the script, and they had some notes, and I went, and they had given me, at that point I had directed and written movies for Lifetime, Showtime, MTV and Sci-Fi, and so luckily I had a body of work to where they were like, okay, we know this guy is competent, he's a competent writer director, so which really helps out. The better the track record you have, the easier it is to get other people to believe that you're, capable. So that really helped, and yeah, that's kind of how that happened. And then
Perfect,
I wrote the script.
Yeah, so maybe just some parting advice for screenwriters. What would you recommend? Someone is fresh to LA and they're in that early stages. What would you recommend that they do?
A couple things. I would say, always write. Wake up if you really want to be a writer. I know writers that have written, 80, 100, over 100 screenplays. They wake up, they treat it as if it's a 9 to 5 job or 9 to 8 job, whatever. And they just, every day they wake up, they write, take a little walk around the block, go to a park, come back to your script, get coverage, go to pitch fest, write every day, but also almost as important, or just as important, or more important, is your mental state, because writing is a very lonely, dark place. You'll find yourself at home or at coffee shops staring at your computer, not having any context, writing these scripts on spec, and you need persistence and you need mental strength. And it's so important because you can really fall into a depression, which I've went through several times, because it's so lonely, and it's just you. You're not gonna, you'll have a support system, have some writer friends, and it's very important to have that. But at the end of the day, they're not going to be the ones hitting the keys. It's going to be you. It's going to be you by yourself. It's always you by yourself. You can collaborate. I never had that. I'm not that type of writer where I have a collaborator, a partner, where I'm sending, I'm writing a few pages and they're writing a few pages. That's just not in my DNA, and maybe one day that'll change. I've never been in a writer's room, hey, I got this idea. Oh, I got that idea. And they're, a showrunner. I'm sort of the lone wolf, type of guy who's, I'll go to a Starbucks every once in a while, but 99% of the time it's me in my apartment, me and my laptop, and that's it, just writing. And it's been tough, it's been tough, but when you get through and you get through the script and come around page 70, 60 something, and you start seeing that finish line. It's tough when you're page 15 or you're page 5, you're page 20, and you're like, man, I got, you don't see the finish line. You just see, a low page count, and you're like, I don't know if this is good. Maybe I should just delete this. But once you start seeing that finish line and you get to the end and you're polishing, that's the most enjoying part. There's an old quote, and I'm sure you know it. It's not fun to write, it's fun to have written, or something, along those lines. But you just keep going. Persist, and eventually, or hopefully, that's the scary part, is you don't know. But eventually, if you keep doing the things I was talking about the contest in LA. Being sociable, is important too, because a lot of writers are introverted, and that's tough. I mean, lucky that I had the acting thing to make the connections, which has helped me. But yeah, I mean, go out to these pitch fests, meet these producers, be in the city, and do all those things. But again, there's no, and I hate to keep saying this, but it's fair warning that there's no guarantee. And I've seen a lot of writers come and go, and I've seen a lot of writers that have that one script, that they keep trying to get made. It's that one script, and they've written one or two scripts, and I would advise not being that person. I would advise being that person initially, writing that one script that you think is great, but if it's your first script, it's probably not going to be very good. Improvement comes by writing script after script, and the more you write, and they should be getting better. Your script should be. That's the goal, right? If your scripts aren't getting better, then maybe it's not. This job is not for everybody, and it's brutal. It's brutal and it's painful, and there are very sharp, and writers aren't often treated very well. They're considered, and the executives are like, oh, we'll just get a couple guys and they'll sit in a room and they'll write. But also learn the business end. Learn to produce your own stuff. And these are things that you can do as writers. If no one's making your script and you believe it and believe in it, but it's not a script that you can do for $20,000, $30,000, and you can raise $30,000. Like, it may sound like it's a lot of money, but you can make a feature film for $30,000, even less. And so I would say, if no one's buying your big, $30 million movie, write a script that you can shoot in your house, that your friend has a camera, but probably not your friend has a camera. Invest in a real cinematographer and a real sound guy, worth it, believe me. And make that script awesome and submit it to film festivals, or make a short, which is, another thing. But if no one's buying your script, make something. That's something that you can do. You can have control. And that's ultimately, that could be your calling card. Whether it's, it's much harder to get people to read your script than it is to, hey, watch my 5-minute short, or submit it, you get it into Cohn. And that's what Damien Chazelle did with Whiplash. He made this, 10-minute or very, I'm not sure how long it was, but it was a short film called Whiplash. And he was able to then do Whiplash. And now he's getting paid millions and millions of dollars in every studio in town wants him.
Yeah, sound advice. So it sounds like Devil's Domain has already been released. Maybe you can tell us where it's available. Is it going to hit iTunes, Netflix, Hulu? Just where is it going to hit?
It's on, it's on all those VOD platforms. Not on Netflix, unfortunately. It was not able to get on there. I think because 13 Reasons Why was a very, sort of a similar type movie, TV show. I don't know. Who knows what Netflix is? Netflix is making a lot of their own content, so it's becoming harder and harder to get. That said, I've gotten quite a few movies on Netflix, and just got another movie on Netflix called Locked Up, which is coming out in June 20th. Yeah, it's on all the VOD, platforms, Amazon, iTunes, Vudu, and, just Google search it, and you'll be able to find it. Perfect. Devil's Domain.
And I always just like to wrap up the interview by asking the guests to just tell us how people can find you, can follow you, keep up with what you're doing, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever you're comfortable sharing. I will grab those links, put them in the show notes, but you can share those now so people can kind of hear where you're most active.
I'm most active these days on Instagram, which I think is probably become the most social, you use social media platform for artists, and my Instagram name is at Jared Cohn 1, the number 1, JaredCohn, and the number 1. So I'm constantly, throwing pictures up and or screenshots of reviews, and you can follow me there. I mean, you can find me on Facebook, but I'm doing more these days on Instagram.
Okay, perfect. Jared, I really appreciate you coming on and talking with me. Great, very candid interview. Lots of great advice. I know screenwriters will get a lot out of this, so I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Hopefully I encouraged, and hopefully I didn't discourage. I just wanted to be real with you, and I'm not big shot Hollywood writer. I'm the guy in the trenches. So if I can, if anything helped anyone, then that makes me feel really good.
Yeah, perfect. Well, I appreciate it. Good luck with your projects, and next time you're finished something, let me know. We'll have you back on to talk about that.
Thank you, and I really appreciate you having me on.
Thank you. We'll talk to you later.
I just want to mention 2 things I'm doing at Selling Your Screenplay to help screenwriters find producers who are looking for material. First, I've created a monthly newsletter that will be sent directly to producers. Every member of SYS Select can submit 1 logline per newsletter. I went and emailed my large database of producers and asked them if they would like to receive this monthly newsletter of pitches. So far, I have around 400 producers who have signed up to receive it. These producers are hungry for material and happy to read scripts from new writers. So if you want to participate in this pitch newsletter and get your script into the hands of lots of producers, sign up at sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. And secondly, I've partnered with one of the premier paid screenwriting leads sites so I can syndicate their leads to SYS Select members. There are lots of great paid leads coming in each week from our partner. Recently, I've been getting 5 to 10 high quality leads per week. There are producers and production companies who are actively looking to buy material or are looking to hire a screenwriter for a specific project. If you sign up for SYS Select, you'll get these leads emailed directly to you several times per week. These leads run the gamut from production companies looking for a specific type of spec script to producers looking to hire a screenwriter to write up one of their ideas or properties. Producers are looking for shorts, features, TV and web series pilots. It's a huge array of different types of projects, and these producers are looking for. And these leads are exclusive to our partner and SYS Select members. Once again, to sign up, just go to sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. So on the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to be interviewing writer-director Sunny Dion. This is the final short filmmaker that I'm going to be talking to in my short film series that I've been doing over the last few months. Sunny wrote and directed a short film called The Grove, which is available to watch for free at screeningnow.com. So if you want to watch that before next week's interviews, I will link to that in the show notes. We talk through the entire process of how he made this short film. So keep an eye out for that episode next week. To wrap things up, I just want to touch on a few things from today's interview with Jared. A lot of great information, a lot of great tips from Jared. I know a lot of screenwriters don't want to direct, and that's totally fine. I get that. But I would like to really highlight what he said. That first feature film he directed, it wasn't a success in and of itself, but it gave him just a little bit of leverage to get that first directing gig on Born Bad. With my own feature film, The Pinch, that I wrote and directed and produced, it's working in much the same way. It's not even done yet, but I've been able to interject myself as a possible director on several projects just because I have it nearly done. Again, I mentioned this a few weeks ago on this TV pilot that I'm writing for a producer. One of the things that he promised me was that if he can get this TV series funded, then obviously it would be a 10 or 12 episode run, and he would let me direct 1 or 2 episodes of that. And again, that's in large part based on that, having that experience with The Pinch. And The Pinch, obviously, it hasn't been a success. It's not even finished yet. I also optioned a script maybe 6 months ago through Inktip, and I mentioned to that producer that I might be interested in directing it. And so far, she seems open to the idea. She's actually creating a business plan, and she's sliding my name in as a possible director on the project. So again, having those credits, they don't have to be, super successful to still benefit your career and still move you ahead. Again, I understand directing isn't necessarily what every screenwriter wants to do, which is okay. But I think the bigger lesson is getting out there and doing stuff so that you have a resume of work. If you don't want to direct, perhaps you can put on your producer's hat and produce one or two of your scripts. Again, start with shorts, work your way up to features. There's really no better way to build your resume than producing your own stuff yourself, getting out there. You will end up, if you're the producer, you will ultimately have creative control on it. It will be your baby. It will turn out hopefully the way you want it to. Again, there might be some people out there that don't want to direct or produce, and that could be okay too. I've talked about this many times in the past on the podcast. There's a lot of places online. I would especially, Mandy.com I think is another one. Craigslist is another one, where there's some people that are out there, producers, directors, film students, people out there looking for short scripts. And this is a great way to, again, get out there, meet people, and get your scripts produced. These short film scripts are easy. If you write a halfway decent one and are aggressively sending it out, you will find someone that wants to produce it and direct it and make it. And all that, again, can just add to your resume. Having an actual writing resume makes you seem a lot more legitimate than just another person with a dream of making it big in Hollywood. So when you're talking with producers about your screenplays, you'll be able to show them several short films that are completed. This is much more impressive than showing them another film. If you have like a 3 or 5 minute short, that's something a producer can just quickly watch. And if it's, again, halfway decent, they can watch it and enjoy it. Sending them a full script, if they've watched this short film beforehand and liked it, it makes reading that script that much easier. These short films, they can be listed on your IMDb page. Again, most of the time a producer, when he's reading a script or thinking about optioning a script from a producer, he will look them up on IMDb, see what other credits they have. If you have a half dozen short films with awards on your IMDb page, that's just going to make him feel like you've got something going on and just make it feel like you're more of a writer. You're more legitimate than these other scripts writers, these other writers he's reading that have no resume. And hopefully some of these shorts will be halfway decent. Hopefully if you're the producer or the producer you're working with, they will aggressively enter them into film festivals. Even small film festivals can garner awards for your film. And again, you can go from, this is putting this in air quotes, you can go from just being a screenwriter to an award-winning screenwriter. Winning an award at even a low-level festival, that is an award. That is something you can add to your resume. You can add it to your query letter. And the biggest thing you get out of doing all these films, whether they be low-budget feature films or low budget short films, the biggest thing you get is the actual experience of seeing your pages come to life, seeing how the actors interpret it, seeing how the director interprets what you've written. All of that stuff is just going to make you a better writer and make you understand the process better. All of it will really help and add to your writing ability. All these things, these subtle little things, they will add up. They will set you apart from the millions of other screenwriters who don't have any shorts or low-budget features on their resume. And the thing is there's really no reason not to be out there trying to do these types of projects. I'd say once or twice a month, I get an email from someone that goes something like this. I've just completed my screenplay, which I believe will be an international hit, and I'm a very talented creative writer, so I know I have the talent, but I just need someone to give me a chance. And again, that's sort of the sentiment. I get a lot of these emails just over the years since selling your screenplay, where someone basically says, oh, I know I have the talent, but someone just needs to give me a chance. And, I always feel like, gee, if you really have the talent, go out and prove it. Go out and make something that's great, and Hollywood will find you. You don't need anybody to give you a chance in this day and age. You can literally shoot something on your cell phone. If you have the wherewithal to be listening to this podcast, you probably have the wherewithal to go and actually do something, do a short film. And I talk about this again, I've mentioned this many, many times on the podcast. Make a low budget short film, make a low budget feature film. All this stuff all the stuff that I'm talking about, these guys, I'm talking to Sonny next week. He did a short film, that whole short film showcase. It's all sort of in an effort to just demystify the process of making a short film. Again, you don't necessarily have to direct it. Maybe you're going to produce it. But all of these little things hopefully will start to show you that these things are not that difficult. And again, the only reason, if you haven't done this, the only reason you haven't done this is you. You don't have to wait for permission. You don't have to wait for a producer to say, yes, I love your stuff. You don't have to wait for a production company to say, yes, I'm going to give you funding. You can go out and do this stuff. I want to mention one sort of the higher end of this whole equation. If you go search out Christopher Nolan's Following, that was his super low budget film, and it's a really, really good film. I saw it on Netflix a couple of years ago, but you can probably find it on Amazon or Netflix. Again, it's Christopher Nolan's Following, and that's a great example. He just went out there and he made a film. It stood out because it was so good, and it got him, got his career moving on. Obviously, that's an extreme case. He's an incredibly talented filmmaker. Most of us probably are not that blessed. But again, going back to Jared's story, Jared's first film, it wasn't Christopher Nolan's Following, but it wasn't a huge success or a financial success, but it gave him just a little bit, just a subtle little edge over other people that were coming into that office. And it gave him just enough to get that first job as a writer-director. And that's really what this is all about. These movies don't have to be terrific. They don't have to go viral. The shorts don't have to go viral for them to be a lot of help in your career and to help you stand out. You don't necessarily have to be disappointed if you do a short film and it doesn't, get 10 million views on YouTube. That's really not what it's all about. It's about making something good so that when someone does see it, they appreciate it and they understand that you are a filmmaker, a quality writer. And that's, as I said, what's going to be the difference between you and the millions of other people that are trying to do this. Anyway, that's the show. Thank you for listening.